Deep in the heart of the whispering woods, where the trees danced in the wind and the moon lit up the night like a silver lantern, lived a young wolf named Moon. She wasn't the biggest or the strongest in her pack, but she was quick with her paws and even quicker with her mind. Moon loved running with her friends, Bruno, Ash, and Rumble. But there was just one little problem. Bruno was big and bold, always leading the way. Ash was fast like a streak of gray lightning. And Rumble? Well, he was as strong as a bear and twice as loud. Moon, though? She was smaller, lighter, and had to run twice as fast just to keep up. "Come on, Moon, catch up!" Bruno howled as he leapt over a fallen log. Moon tried. She really did. She took a deep breath, sprinted forward, and thump, tripped right over a tree root. Ash snickered. "Maybe if you were a little taller, that wouldn't happen." Moon huffed, shaking the dust from her fur. "Maybe if you were a little smarter, you'd see I did that on purpose," she said, standing tall. Rumble tilted his head. "You tripped on purpose?" Yes," Moon tried, but even she wasn't convinced. The others laughed, but not in a mean way. They liked Moon. She was clever, and she always had a way of making things interesting. One evening, the older wolves gathered the young ones around the great rock for a story. The fireflies twinkled like tiny stars, and the wind carried the scent of pine through the air. "Listen well, young ones," said Elder Fang, the wisest wolf of them all. "Beyond the forest, past the rushing river, lies the hidden valley, a place only the bravest wolves have ever seen." Bruno's ears perked up. "Bravest, huh?" Ash wagged his tail. "Sounds like a challenge." Rumble puffed out his chest. "I bet we could find it." Moon's heart raced. A secret valley? A grand adventure? This could be her chance to show the pack that she was just as brave, just as important. Bruno grinned. "Tomorrow, we'll find the hidden valley. First one there wins." Moon gulped. A race? That wasn't exactly her best skill, but she squared her shoulders. Maybe this wasn't about speed. Maybe this was about something else. As the moon rose high in the sky, she lay in her den, staring at the stars. She had a feeling this adventure would be more than just a race. It would be her chance to prove that being small didn't mean being weak. It just meant she had to be smarter. The next morning, before the sun had even stretched its golden arms across the sky, Moon and her friends gathered at the edge of the forest. Bruno bounced on his paws. "All right, first one to the hidden valley wins." Ash flicked his tail. "I bet I'll get there first." Rumble stretched his legs. "Not if I squash you like a squirrel." Moon took a deep breath. She wasn't the fastest, she wasn't the strongest, but she was ready. With a howl, Bruno took off. Ash zoomed after him, his paws barely touching the ground. Rumble thundered behind, shaking the dirt beneath him. Moon ran too, but soon the others were far ahead. Their shadows disappeared into the trees. She frowned. "Not fair," she muttered. "I need longer legs." The deeper she ran into the woods, the darker it got. The trees stood tall and still, like giant sleepy guards. The wind whispered through the branches. Suddenly, snap! Moon stopped. Had that been a branch or something else? She flicked her ears and sniffed the air. Just trees, just leaves, just wait. Something else. Far ahead, she heard voices. Bruno, Ash, and Rumble. "I think we're lost," Rumble admitted. "No way," said Bruno. "We just, need to go that way." Moon followed their voices until she found them circling a big oak tree, looking very confused. "Didn't we already pass this tree?" Ash asked, squinting at its bark. Rumble sniffed the ground. "Everything smells the same." Moon smirked. "You're all lost." "Aren't you?" Bruno huffed. "No, we just took the scenic route." Ash sighed. "Fine. Maybe a little lost." Moon's tail flicked. "I noticed scratch marks on the trees earlier. Some animal left a trail." She padded over to a nearby tree and pointed with her nose. Tiny clawed scratches ran down the bark. "See? A secret path." Bruno squinted. "You sure?" Moon grinned. "Nope, but it's better than walking in circles." With no better idea, the wolves followed Moon. Step by step, the forest changed. The air felt cooler. The trees grew wider. The path twisted and turned, leading them somewhere new. Moon felt something warm inside her chest. For the first time today, she was leading. After a while, the trees thinned, and ahead of them, the sound of rushing water filled the air. Ash perked up. "I think we made it." But as they ran toward the noise, Moon's stomach dropped. Up ahead was not the hidden valley. It was a river, a wide, wild, and very deep river. Bruno stopped short. "Well, that's a problem." Rumble gulped. Anyone know how to swim?" Moon didn't answer. She was too busy thinking. because she knew the race wasn't over yet, and she had a feeling this was going to be another moment where brains would matter more than speed. Moon and her friends stood at the edge of the river, their ears twitching at the sound of roaring water. Bruno frowned. "That's a lot of water." Ash flicked his tail. "Too much water." Rumble gulped. "Water is fine unless you fall in." Moon studied the river. It rushed and swirled, tumbling over sharp rocks. The only way across was a long fallen tree. It stretched from one side to the other, but it looked wobbly. Bruno grinned. "Easy, just run across." Before Moon could stop him, he bounded onto the log. It wobbled beneath his paws, but he made it across with a leap. Ash followed, dashing across like the wind. Rumble stepped forward, but hesitated. His big paws rested on the log. It creaked. Moon's ears flattened. That wasn't a good sound. Rumble?" Ash called from the other side. "Maybe? Be gentle?" Rumble took a careful step. The log trembled. Another step. It wobbled. Then crack! The log lurched to one side. Rumble yelped and froze. "I'm stuck," he whined. "If I move, I'm gonna fall in." Moon's heart pounded. If Rumble slipped, the river would sweep him away. Think, think, think. She glanced at the water. The current was fast, but just below Rumble, big flat rocks peeked through the surface. Moon's eyes lit up. She had an idea. "Rumble, don't move," she called. "I'm not planning to," he squeaked. Moon darted along the riverbank, hopping onto the nearest rock. It was wet but steady. She jumped to the next one, then another. Bruno's eyes widened. "Oh, I get it, the rocks!" Moon grinned. "Rumble, step down onto the stone, not forward onto the log." Rumble peered down, his legs shaking. "I dunno, Moon." "You trust me?" Rumble gulped, then nodded. "I trust you." He slowly lifted one paw off the log and stepped onto the stone. It held. Then another paw. One step at a time, Rumble carefully made his way across the river on the rocks instead of the log. When he reached the other side, he collapsed in the grass, panting. "I think I just lost 5 years of my wolf life." Bruno laughed. "That was awesome." Ash wagged his tail. "Yeah, who needs logs when you have Moon's brain?" Moon beamed. Her idea had worked. She wasn't the fastest, she wasn't the strongest, but she was the smartest. And right now, that was exactly what her friends needed. The young wolves turned toward the trees. On the other side of the river, the forest looked different. The trees were taller. The air smelled fresher. The hidden valley was close, but their adventure wasn't over yet. With her tail high, Moon led her friends forward, ready for whatever came next. The young wolves padded through the trees, their fur tingling with excitement. The air smelled sweet, like fresh grass and wildflowers. Birds chirped high in the branches. Then, suddenly, whoa! Bruno stopped so fast that Ash bumped into him. In front of them stretched the hidden valley. It was bigger than they had imagined, rolling green hills, tall golden grass, and a sparkling blue lake in the middle. Ash wagged his tail. "We found it," Rumble grinned. "We're the first wolves to see this place." Moon stepped forward, breathing in the fresh air. She felt proud. She wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she had helped get them here. Then Bruno's ears perked. "Look, a cave!" Near the lake, a huge cave yawned open in the side of a rocky hill. The entrance was dark and mysterious, and when the wind blew inside, it made a long, low woo sound. Ash's eyes sparkled. "Let's check it out!" The wolves trotted inside. The cave was cool and quiet, with little drips of water echoing around them. Bruno howled just to hear the sound bounce back. "Oh!" the cave answered. Rumble laughed and stomped his paws. "Hello!" the cave called back. The wolves giggled and explored deeper, but as they wandered, something happened. Crack! A sharp sound echoed through the cave. The ground rumbled beneath their paws. Moon's fur stood on end. Guys!" Boom! A rock tumbled from the ceiling. Ash yelped. "The cave is falling." More rocks crashed down, blocking the entrance. Dust filled the air. The wolves coughed and huddled together. "We're trapped!" Bruno cried. Rumble pushed at the fallen rocks. Too heavy. Moon's heart pounded. The cave was dark. The air felt tight. Think, think, think. Then she noticed something. The way their howls bounced before. The way the wind whooshed through the cave. "There's another way out," she whispered. Ash blinked. "How do you know?" Moon pointed with her nose. "Listen." The wolves stayed quiet. In the distance, they heard it. A soft breeze. The air wasn't trapped. "There must be a tunnel," Moon said. Bruno's tail wagged. "Then let's find it." They padded carefully through the darkness, following the wind. Then light, a tiny sliver ahead. The wolves rushed forward. The opening was small but big enough to squeeze through. One by one, they wiggled out of the cave and into the golden sunlight. They made it. Ash shook out his fur. That was the coolest, scariest thing ever, Rumble groaned. I need a nap. Moon just smiled. She had saved them, again. The sun was starting to set. It was time to go home. And this time, Moon would lead the way. By the time the young wolves reached their forest, the sky was painted with stars. The moon shined bright like a silver paw print in the sky. As they padded into the clearing, the older wolves looked up. Bruno puffed out his chest. We made it to the hidden valley, Ash grinned, and we got trapped in a cave. Rumble flopped on the ground, and I almost fell into a river. The older wolves blinked. Elder Fang stepped forward. And yet, here you are. Bruno wagged his tail. Because Moon saved us, she found the path, helped Rumble cross the river, and got us out of the cave. The pack turned to Moon. She suddenly felt small again. Would they believe her? Then Elder Fang smiled. A wolf does not need to be the biggest or the fastest to be great, he said. She only needs to be wise. The other wolves nodded. Moon's heart swelled. The pack tilted their heads to the sky and let out a long, beautiful howl, not just for the adventure. For her, Moon lifted her head and howled too. She had spent so long trying to keep up. Now she had proved something even greater. She wasn't just part of the pack. She was a leader, and the moon shined brighter than ever before.